All right, welcome to another edition of the Parent Confidence Lab podcast. We are very happy and honored to have Dr. Zaid Fadul here with us today. He is a highly distinguished physician, healthcare innovator, and medical executive with over 15 years of experience bridging frontline primary care, digital health innovation, and mission-critical medicine. A Harvard-trained healthcare leader, Dr. Fadul is a dual board certified in family medicine and addiction medicine. He serves as the chief executive officer of Bespoke Concierge and also acts as a flight surgeon with the U.S. Air Force Reserve. Throughout his career, Dr. Fadul has built a reputation for dismantling complex health trends, regulatory shifts, and clinical concepts into highly accessible, transparent, and evidence-based insights. And his unique background spans leading nationwide mobile care programs, navigating rural and underserved clinical realities, and scaling telemedicine platforms designed to enhance long-term patient outcomes. Welcome today, Dr. Fadul.
With that kind of welcome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Well, we're going to get started right away and really jump into it. You know, we know that you are very passionate about the work that you do. And one of our biggest things that we ask all of our guests here is really, what has gotten you into medicine and why have you really, been determined to solve the mission that you are actually solving?
So it's ironic, but what got me into medicine has nothing to do with what I do in medicine now. But I used to be a big time scuba diver. I was an underwater photographer back in the day. And I avoided science like the plague in high school and college. And I took this intro to scuba diving course and it was just fascinating. And it led me to dive physiology and I wanted to understand everything. And I saw the harmony of the body and the music or the symphony of how everything works together. And it inevitably drove me to want to understand more and more. And so ultimately I went to med school for this and I thought I loved it. Aside from that, as I've gotten further into my career, I have really developed a sense of community and just wanted to serve. And so I've always looked for different ways I can apply my efforts and talents to try and help support whatever the community is, whether it's the military and the nation at large or, running local hospital systems. And now the only job you didn't mention is a proud father. And so now that's a lot of what I do is geared towards supporting them, including the YouTube channel, right? A lot of it is when they get older, they're going to have my advice ringing in their ears and my way of kind of cutting through kind of complex issues. So,
Yeah, wonderful. And I love how you mentioned the father, and you mentioned to us before being a present, involved father is very important to you. And this idea of longevity, being, a slightly older father is important to you. Can you talk to us a little bit about how that inspires your work?
sure. Yeah. So it's challenging being a dad, right? And I once heard Michael Jordan describe golfing this way. And I'm like, that's actually parenting. It's not golfing. He said golfing was really difficult because it's basically you playing in a mirror and you're playing against yourself. And that is actually what parenting is. You've got several children. And if you yell at your kids, don't yell at your sibling, what are you teaching them to yell? Right. And so you have to constantly recognize that they're looking at everything you're doing. They don't care what you're saying. They're looking at everything you're doing, and that's what they're soaking up. Your tone, your energy, your vibe, all of it. And so I find it super challenging and rewarding and incredibly awe-inspiring because you are shaping this human's everything for the rest of their life. They're going to be dealing with whatever dumbness you put in their head or whatever awesomeness you put in their head. So that's one of the things. And so as I started having children, once I got to the third one, I realized I'm getting old and I wanted to be around and I wanted to be strong and I wanted to, go hiking with my kids and go skiing with them and other things like that. I'm 47 now. We've got 4. I'm trying to sweet talk my wife into one more and, I'll be 70 by the time that one, if I can get her to say yes. I'd be 70 by the time that one graduates college, right? And so you don't want to be the crusty old guy with a cane and, people don't even recognize you as a father. They'd look at you as like you're the grandpa, right? So I don't want to be that guy. So it drove me into really, looking at longevity and trying to sort through it and try and see what's validated, what's real, versus what is just kind of like marketing bunk. And so that kind of led me to where I'm at today. So,
Dr. Fadul, I know one of your passions really is to make healthcare more simple and just simplify it for the average patient. And we know that doctors play a big role in that and also patients as well. And so when it comes to adherence and making sure that they're following the doctor's orders, right? But, when it comes down to what's most effective from a physician standpoint, as well as a patient standpoint, how can we make medicine much more simple?
Health literacy is critically important. One of my new partners is Dr. Phyllis Nsiakumi, Doc Kumi affectionately, and she did her MPH, Master's in Public Health and Health Literacy. That was one of her focuses. And her point was it doesn't matter if you know all the answers, as if your patient knows all the answers. Like that's the key. And so one of the things that I love that you guys are doing is with Avocado Health is taking AI and helping educate parents because in the end, I can give you all the right answers, but I use big words that kind of are complicated and I speak really fast. You don't have to ask me to slow down. I already know. And so you can imagine how excited I am in a patient room when I'm trying to give them this information that I spent years amassing. And I'm so eager to help them help themselves. The problem is it gets lost. Right. And so what I want a lot of patients to understand is they should walk away with full knowledge of what they were just told, either immediately or within one day by having an information sheet or at least writing down the diagnoses and utilizing an app like Avocado Health and using AI to really say, hey, explain this to me like I'm five. I don't understand what a slipped capital femoral epiphysis is. My doctor's really proud he could say it, but I don't really understand what it is. And I didn't want to ask in the room because I was a little embarrassed because I'm still processing the words and he's already moving on to the next thing. And so taking, a really good smart AI solution and just having it break down the diagnoses and having it understand your fears and having it help you prioritize the next set of questions you're going to ask on the next visit. These things really go such a long way to making you not a recipient of orders, but a collaborative partner in your child's healthcare or in your healthcare, right? I don't tell people what to do. I give them advice and I try and tailor it to their lifestyle and I try and make it match their goals. But if you don't understand what I'm talking about, how far am I going to get? Then that means I'm a failure, right? It's not your fault if you don't get the message. It's mine. So
I love
As a follow up to that, but in terms of helping them help themselves, and avocado, is all about that. What we do is help parents, be the best advocate for their child. There's that saying that a mother, father, they know their child better than most doctors do. Can you
they know better than every doctor. You are an expert on your child. I am not.
exactly?
I am an expert on medicine and my children, but you're an expert on your medicine. I need that knowledge. I need that guidance. So
So my question to that is, can you think of a time in the past where, a parent kind of came to you and said, "Hey, I sense something X, Y, and Z, or I have this type of insight, observational insight." How has that made your job easier as a physician and gotten
yeah.
to the bottom of it?
Yeah. So there's three mothers I never mess with. Okay. Mother Nature, Mother Bear, and mothers of my patients. If a mom, since residency, if a mom tells me she's worried about a child, I don't care what's going on. It's everybody stop. We're going to pay attention and see what's going on here. Mothers in particular know their children better than anybody else. Truly, truly. And if a mother's sixth sense is tingling, if that spidey sense is tingling and they don't feel good about something, I don't care what goes on, we are stopping and we're going to take a second look. And so throughout residency and in my career, that has served me so well because time and again, where you just like, oh, it's probably nothing. But a mother knows when their child is acting lethargic before anybody else picks up on it, they know. A mother knows when the child's not eating, when they got their favorite snack in front of them versus, and I'm dad, I'm just like, here, eat this, right? Like it's not as in tune as my wife is with the kids. Mothers know when their child is emotionally down, they pick up the cues so fast and everyone else around them, including their best friends, aren't getting onto it because we're all preoccupied with ourselves, whereas parents are preoccupied with their children. And so when parents speak, I beg them, I'm like, please, if you're picking up something, like tell me because this is the 14th patient I've seen in clinic today. And it's the first time I'm seeing your patient. I don't know if your voice has changed, right? I had a mom tell me one time that her son, all of a sudden, she thought he was going through puberty. I'm like, why? Well, his voice got really, deep. And I'm like, and he had an obstruction. Like it wasn't puberty, it was an obstruction. And all of a sudden his thyroid was getting bigger and it was starting to squeeze. And, and he was trying to compensate. So he was getting himself hoarse. And that's what she thought was puberty, but like, nothing else checked out for puberty. And I would not even have thought about it because I've never heard the kid speak before that moment, right? Without mom and or dad advocating. So I always want parents to advocate and just say, hey, this is maybe not worth anything. I love those. But what do you think? And I'm like, tell me, why did that get your attention? So no, parents are the best advocates for their children. They're the only advocates for their children. So never keep it to yourself. Speak up. What's the harm? So
I love that. I love that. And I know that's been super critical to our story. I knew right away with our daughter Aviva at 9 days old, she woke up from a 3-hour nap and didn't want to nurse, which I was like, that's very strange.
Odd, right?
And
Yeah.
wanted to go back to bed, also very strange from a 3-hour nap. And then I just noticed her nose was cold and took her temperature and said, oh my gosh, she's cold. And realized that luckily we had kept the kind of doctor's note from the from delivery that said, high temperature is bad, but also low temperature is dangerous. And I didn't know that, but the motherly instinct for sure, or the parent instinct told me that, something was wrong, even if other people didn't notice it. So thank
Let-
you for naming that.
no, no, for sure. Let me clarify something. Because I'm a dad and I love my kids and I am in tune with them. Mothers only know best because they're generally the primary caregiver who spends the
Mhm.
most time. It's whichever
Yeah.
parent has the most access. I was away for a work trip for 5 days. Kids act
Yeah.
like they don't even know me when I get back, right? But after 2 days because I wanted to spend time catching up and I give my wife the weekend off. But after 2 days, I'm so in tune with them. So please, dads out there, like don't assume because you're not mom that no, you're paying just as close attention. It's just a matter of how much time and access. Because if you pick up those little habits, I have some of my best friends are primary caregivers and they're either they're single dads or mom's the main one working and she works, one's a police detective. So she's working all the time at weird hours. Dad's always putting him to bed. Dad knows his little girls better than anybody. So it's really just about primary caregiver that we all assume is mom. But, you know,
For sure, for sure. And I was
yeah.
raised by my dad, so I get that.
Yes.
Primary
Yeah. Yeah.
caretaker in my case was my dad, and he is very aware on every time I'm not feeling well and things like that. And we have family in our lives. I think you're right. It's just it's so important because I think so many parents, and especially I think moms, like, double check themselves, like, oh, I don't want to make a big deal. I kind of think this is a problem, but I don't know what to say. And,
Ask,
we're
ask.
exactly. I love
You
that.
should walk you should always walk out of a doctor's office or an appointment feeling like you understand what's happening today and what bad looks like. I always tell
Mhm.
parents, I'm like, okay, you think this is strep throat. I don't, but let's go through the symptoms. If this is strep, you're going to start getting a really high fever. So watch it. Here's what I want. This is exactly what I want you to watch for. Now you can focus your energy where it belongs, not on anxiety, but
Yeah.
on symptom monitoring, right? Which is what I really need. I need eyes and ears on that patient. Just help me do my job. So
So important, so important. And so tell us, I mean, I know that YouTube channel is a lot for you. Getting this information out there is a lot for you. Telehealth. Tell us more about what you're doing to support
yeah.
patients.
So right. I appreciate you asking that. So there's two prongs to my approach. My partners and I run Bespoke Concierge MD. What we do is we have concierge level approach to all our patients, and we do that on a direct primary care level and also high end concierge. But the principle is the same. Your doctor is assigned to your family, and they get to know you. And that way you feel comfortable speaking up. And we always ask right off the bat, what are goals for the next month and next year? So we can help you work there. Some parents are really worried about their kids' growth rates. Some parents are really worried about the kids' weight. Parents are really focused on their kids' sexual health, right? They're turning 16, 17. They're not sure how to engage. They want to give them autonomy, but not too much, right? And so working with families and understanding collectively the goals, that is really important to me. The other side of it to support the practice, I started this YouTube channel, which I didn't realize was going to be such a success. Uh, I want patients to understand and destigmatize questions. I want them to feel empowered because that's really the whole point of our concierge practice and the YouTube channel. Just you should understand the context with which I see things as a physician so that you can talk in my language and you can demand answers that fit your life and your needs and your family. And so that for me is really important. And I've seen just an incredible response with several of these videos. We have a new one coming out actually that really dovetails with perfectly what you're doing about AI in healthcare. And me as a physician telling patients, I want you to use AI, but use it in the right ways, right? And so use it to help organize your questions, use it to help understand the diagnoses, use it to ask lifestyle choices you're making right now. Does it make it better or worse? My son is 12 right now and he's a little overweight. And so I've got him now copying a lot of my workouts and we're working out together. He started developing some foot problems. I am not a podiatrist. I'm just not. And so I asked AI, I'm like, hey, here's my son, X, Y, Z, here's all the issues. What are the possible diagnoses? And then now I'm very good at prompting it because I know as a physician what to put in. But it was helpful for me as a parent just to see that because it helped me moderate. Should I stop him exercising? The answer was no. We should just moderate a little bit. But it gave me a little extra guidance. And then I'm going to circle back with this podiatrist to really nail in if this is accurate or not accurate. Those things go a long way for parents when you're empowered and you're using the tools the right way. Where I've seen it used the wrong way is mental health. Kids feel very judged and they're very insecure, and then they put in their, symptoms into a, AI chatbot. That AI chatbot sometimes doesn't have the ability to alert authorities if there's suicidal ideation. That chatbot doesn't connect to the bigger picture. So if parents use that chatbot the right way, it gives children a private space and place to really talk about things. If they have no idea what's going on and the children kind of goes down a rabbit hole, something can really get missed. So, there's good ways and bad ways. And I think, like I said, AI in healthcare can be fantastic. What you guys are doing is a really smart way to approach it.
That's amazing. And really, that dovetails into what we're really trying to do is really help parents in a very profound way, in the right way, where we know that a lot of, what ChatGPT has and a lot of other AI uses is, Reddit. It's um, blogs. It's a lot of other sources that aren't necessarily verified. And so when you're talking to your patients at Bespoke, you know, are there different places that you say go here and not there, use this and not that, just to make sure that they have those guidelines from from a physician?
Yeah, it's so we talked about your LLM a little bit already. So I love the fact that you're doing evidence-based journals and things like that as a core, right? The term junk in, junk out. I love ChatGPT. I love Claude. I love all these different AI services, but the problem is they're polling the entire internet. And so you're getting you're getting Reddit feeds and you're getting people's marketing smarmy websites, with total nonsense being fed into the system. I think a better approach is not so much aside from using your system, it's the way you prompt the system, right? When I ask a question, is it really a bad idea for me to eat this, Snickers bar at 10 o'clock at night? The AI is going to be looking to say, no, I guess if you take a walk, it'll be fine, right? Like it's looking to please you. If you say, hey, my child has, you know, these odd cramps at night, what are the top three diagnoses this could be? Right? Nice, open ended. You're not hinting at what you're looking for. Or what are the five diagnoses this could be? Or what should I ask my doctor about these? Or what should I record so that my doctor can then, help analyze this? When does it start? Does it happen at night? Does it stay? Is there anything you do to make it better or worse? Like these things are all very helpful for me as a provider when I get kind of like a little symptom log. And so using AI that way is better than the version of AI you're using, as long as that AI is geared towards that, right? What you guys built at Avocado Health is great because it's geared towards parents and their children. And so it's likely to give you a really good answer and a really good guidance. Go to ChatGPT, bless its heart. It's got the whole internet as its store, and it's trying to guess what it thinks you want, and it may not have any concept of what it's going to feed you back, except for trying to please you, so you keep using the service, right? And so that's one of the challenges with AI in healthcare right now.
Yeah, and looking at kind of at your bio, I know you've done so many important and interesting things. And I'm curious more about the addiction work that you've done, and especially like nowadays there's so many addictions, but a lot of parents are dealing with kids who might be addicted to many things, including the internet, their phones, alcohol, drugs, etc. Um, so yeah, I just curious, like in your experience and knowing that we're talking a lot to parents out there, kind of what experience do you have in this addiction field, and what kind of advice do you have with parents who might be navigating their own or their children's teenage, young 20s?
Talk about addiction for days. I'll try, I'll try and keep it brief. Um, First, I think it's to understand that certain addictions society rewards and others it doesn't, right? I may be a bit of a workaholic. And so society rewards me for that because I enjoy working. I enjoy trying to figure complex things out. If I had an alcohol habit, society would punish me for it, right? And so recognizing that not all addictions are treated equal is important as a baseline, right? So we have kids today that are addicted to their phones, but their phone has also got more knowledge in it than, literally there's just nothing on par with it, right? So do we want to cut them off from their phones? No, we don't. Do we want to utilize their curiosity about it to then empower them, right? There's two types of people that use AI. Those that want to not think about anything and just get the answer, and those that want to learn everything. You know what I mean? And so I'm very much in that camp. And when I talk to my kids about, their obsession with devices, it's to see if they can challenge themselves to grow. So that's a good addiction versus a bad addiction where you're just getting lazier and slower with it. So once you identify the addiction, then you want to talk to your children about like what's driving it, right? I've seen many people, we'll just use teenagers as an example. Teens can turn to alcohol as a way of compensating for either insecurity, social phobias, or losing a parent or a loved one that they don't know how to fill that hole. And so I don't judge people for their addictions. I recognize that this is just it's just a way of coping. And for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, it's a coping mechanism. And what's better for most parents is to identify what that child is trying to cope with and help give them the tools in a different path. So I have four, and my 5-year-old girl is got a bigger personality than the son. I mean, it's phenomenal how big her emotions are. And like, I will tell her that I don't like when she does certain things to try and nudge that behavior. And her answer to me, in spite of all my affirmations all the time to the contrary, is, "You don't love me. I'm a bad daughter." Like, that's where she goes. Right. And it dawned on me that like these are really big issues for her because she thinks I'm disappointed in her. Where it's just the behavior I'm trying to modify. And so I've learned to be like, okay, I know that this may feel scary right now for you, but here's a way you can deal with this. If I say I don't like this behavior, let's think about why you made that choice. If you don't know, that's okay. And we'll maybe figure it out together, but maybe there's a better way, better choice we can make. If I don't do that, it turns into this extreme, right? And so we don't realize as parents a lot of times what our impression of our children and how we talk to them impacts them, and they don't have the tools then to kind of comprehend that damaging feedback. Everything's not perfect. I did something wrong. Does that mean you don't love me anymore? Right? Like those things are real for kids. And so a lot of addictions I've seen at their root are people trying to cope and they don't know how to cope. So they're trying to then numb themselves from their inability to cope with the situation and just get through it. Right.
Dr. Zaid, one of the things that I really love about your work and that you've done is that you really keep your role and your job as a father as one of the most important jobs that you have. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what you have actually on your bio as a professional child wrangler, domestic chaos coordinator, which is amazing. And for those that haven't read it yet, he's an expert in negotiating bedtimes with tiny terrorists, as he says, who have
Yep.
mastered the art of just 5 more minutes. I know exactly what you're talking about. The delay tactics are a thing. And then you're also the world record holder for the most consecutive viewings of Frozen without losing your sanity. Um,
I
we have
l-
Frozen.
literally sing it in the shower without even realizing I've watched it so many times.
Let
But
it
again, I've
go.
got siblings that fight, right? So like I want to make sure that they really congeal and get along.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So you let it go, right? But throughout all of your domestic duties, it seems like, one word that I always go back to is patience, right? Patience, is something that you have to have as an abundance as a parent. Patience with everything from assembling IKEA furniture to negotiating vegetables. But in your work, as a physician, but also as, in the Air Force, you know, have there been anything that you learned from those disciplines that have really helped you uh, as the number one child wrangler and domestic chaos coordinator in your household?
I have learned some very funny things, but I'm going to ask you a question first. Do you think it's more important as a parent to have patience with your children or the situation or yourself?
Yourself, you always
Yeah.
have to look inwards first. I
Yeah.
always say that.
Always. Yeah. No, but I
Yeah,
used to think it was being patient with the kids. I'm like, no, I don't want to Hulk out. Like, I need to make sure that I'm not reacting and bringing my own weird biases to this situation. The Air Force taught me the value of making a common enemy. So I tell my kids all the time, either you two figure it out or I'm going to solve it. And you don't want me to solve it. Right. And all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, we're going to lose TV. We have to like figure out what we're going to watch together. It's great, great little tactic I learned from the military, right? They just always make a common enemy and everybody will rally around. And
even if
then,
you're the enemy, if you're
yeah,
the
no, no, it's a running joke in my house, but like I love when I tell you I love my kids, I mean, it's the only reason I'm breathing. Like I truly, because this world is full of nonsense and headaches, but they are the only light in my life that I just adore. However, I'm their father and I have to set that standard. And so everything's fine. We'll play games. But the minute they start talking back to their mom or they start beating on each other because they're all so aggressive with each other, I'm like, okay, we'll flip the script. So you want your friend dad, or do you want the bad guy? Because like, what's better for you right now? And they're like, no, we don't like when you yell. I'm like, I don't like when I yell either. But at this point, like in this family, we don't do X, Y, and Z. We don't beat up on our siblings. We're not rude to each other. There's no reason for it. I'm not rude to anybody. Why are you guys doing? Where are you getting it from? Usually TV or, one of their friends is what I've noticed. But if you can create that sense of, okay, if we mess this up for one of us, we're messing it up for everybody, the behavior starts to moderate. What I've told the two middle kids, God bless them. They are each other's best friends and they hate each other at the same time. Like, it's phenomenal. I'm like, how can you do this in the blink of an eye? But one will go to the other one to try and get them to react emotionally. So then the parents hear it, thinking they're going to get that kid in trouble. And my answer to them is, look, if I hear this person complain, it's both problems. It's for both of you guys. You both have to deal with the consequences. And once I started doing that, all of a sudden, they're not goading each other anymore because they're both getting in trouble. I'm like, great, common enemy, done. Right? Like, if we want to do it that way, I'm not going to referee this. It's common enemy time. Like, so it's a fun thing I learned from the Air Force. The Air Force, they try and be much cooler about it. But once I realized that tactic, I'm like, man, this is really effective.
Very nice. We'll definitely
Yeah.
have to employ that. As long
Yeah.
as it's not like a good cop, bad cop, where a lot of times I'm the bad cop. Cristina gets to be the good cop. A lot of times, right?
You got to be careful with that.
Yeah.
It's not fun, right? My wife always says that I'm the fun parent. I'm like, I'm not the fun parent. I'm the one that's way
I
down
know
the
it's hard for the not fun parent, right?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
little hard.
But you should always play those roles, and you should mix those roles up. It shouldn't just be all discipline from dad, and dad can't be fun. I love having fun with my kids, but by the same token, I'm a bit sterner than my wife is, But my wife, she gets to hang out with the kids all the time. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to always be the one, saying no, you can't do this. Like, so you got to mix those roles up.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so
And so you've worked with family, you worked for a long time in this space and working with so many, doing such amazing things for people. What advice do you have for the parents out there listening, and maybe even for yourself? Like when you think back to your first child, how were you different then, and how are you different now? And what advice would you give to the parents out there listening?
yeah, that's a great question. There is a book by Malcolm Gladwell, I think, called Outliers. I did not read this book for parenting, but it was such a profoundly impactful book for me for parenting. He talks about all the little advantages that help over time. And, it's phenomenal. And so in reading that book, he talked about a word that I think is really dangerous. And talked about word being entitled. And I was like, I've never heard entitled used in a good way, and I don't want my kids being entitled. And he said that it gets a bad rap. He said that the children of educated parents typically feel a sense of entitlement to get good care when they go to the doctor. And that children whose parents are not that educated don't know how to kind of advocate for themselves, and the kids pick up on that. And so he recommended entitlement in a healthcare setting for children, that they should expect their doctor to answer their questions, that they should expect to feel better after going to their doctor, or at least getting an answer. And I think that's really valuable. My best friend growing up, her mom, when she would go to the doctor, like it was like church mouse quiet, right? Like she didn't want to ask anything. Even when she went to see my dad as a cardiologist, she went to see him one time and she couldn't speak up. She'd been to my house many times for dinner. We would all hang out. My family loves her, knows her. But like when it came to the doctor's office, my dad in a white coat, she clammed up and didn't know how to say anything. And I'm like, Julie, you're having palpitations. I'm going to say it for you. Like, just get it out there. So I tell parents all the time, don't be afraid to advocate for your kids. Don't be afraid to feel entitled to an answer. Don't be afraid to speak up, because in the end, like I'm telling you right now, as a physician, I am relying on you telling me what's different from baseline for your kids. And if you don't say something, or if you don't bring it up, how am I going to know? I'm not a telepath. I'm a medical doctor, right? So, advocating for your kids and teaching them to advocate for themselves is so critically important, and using every tool at your disposal to help them understand and to help yourself understand is, that's the best thing you can do for your kids.
Definitely profound advice, and certainly something that we resonate a lot with. You certainly have to be your child's best advocate. Just taking a macro view and taking a step back and looking at the healthcare system overall, and knowing, that you fundamentally want parents and you want patients to be the best advocate, but also simplifying medicine across the board, where if we take care of ourselves, that will inevitably, it's not going to solve cancer. It's not going to be a panacea, but for us, is going to help us get on the right trajectory towards, longevity, towards better outcomes, et cetera. And so when you look at the healthcare system overall, and now I know this could be a very long-winded answer, but is there one thing that you're, you know, fearful of or even uh, hopeful for that's coming up in the future that you want to alert, um, any kind of
My
listeners
kids
to?
are freaking out. Give me
Okay,
1 second. Hold on.
sure.
Sit on the couch. We're almost done. It's okay. Where's your tablet?
Out there. You sure you don't want to bring it?
Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
We can make this the last question.
Come right back in.
Stop. I was telling you that.
You're not in trouble. It's okay. She's got big feelings. The 6-year-old has big feelings. I didn't think to unlock the door. I am sorry about that. I know you can edit it out, but
Yes, we'll definitely edit it out. And are we good? Good to go back?
no, I wanted her to come back in. I wanted her to see me, realize everything's fine. I'm gonna get her to say hi to you guys if you want. Come here. Do you want to say hi to everybody?
Absolutely.
No. Yes, you can go back up. All right. You okay, Layla? Yeah, I'm here. We need 2 minutes. Can you? All right. Should we start again?
All right. Yeah, we'll
Thank
just
you, buddy.
cut right to the chase. Is there anything out there, good or bad, that you see coming down the pipeline in the healthcare system overall that you're either very hopeful for or even very fearful of coming in the future?
Yes, AI. To both. I think AI can be fantastic, and I also think AI can be leading people down the really wrong path. You have to use it in a good system. I really strongly encourage patients to use it, but use it with their medical providers. I want them to be mindful of the fact that there's bias in the data sets so that you may get an answer that makes you feel like everything's okay when it's not okay. So I think AI is a fantastic revolution for healthcare, but it goes both ways. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here, Dr. Zaid, and just anything else that you'd like our audience of mostly parents to know about.
There's lots of things I want them to know, but there's probably a take home message I want them to have is that to, forgive yourself for your mistakes and having resilience is important in your children, but it has to be in your parenting as well. I screw up all the time, like all the time. And I get frustrated with myself all the time. And I have learned how to forgive myself and just say, okay, I didn't like how I handled that situation. I'm going to be better for the next one. And I'm never shy about apologizing to my kids. Be like, you know what? That was maybe a little bit hot. We're gonna bring it back down. My son yesterday got on my last nerve, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "You know what? That was too much. I'm sorry. We're gonna start again. I don't like what you did, but there's a better way that I can handle that." And when you forgive yourself and you're patient with yourself, your kids are learning that it's okay to be like, "Yeah, I don't really like how I said that. Let me try this again." So you don't have to be perfect. Like, let that go. It's not golf in that sense. You don't have to be perfect. That's my take home message for every parent out there.
There's no wholesome ones. You cannot get a home every single time, and you do have to
I
forgive
love
yourself.
that. Thank you so much. I really hit home. I had that moment last night, late night when we couldn't go to bed. So that hit home for me. I appreciate
No,
that. I will
Great.
forgive
What a
myself.
lucky for those parents that have a teammate to help out. Like I really hats off to single parents out there because I ask my wife for help all the time and she asks me for help all the time. And they're just because sometimes your bandwidth is just much wider. Like sometimes I come home after a long day at work, I just don't have any room for anything in my brain. And I need 20 minutes of quiet. So I've learned to just meditate before I go home and make sure that I've got some room. But if you could tag a spouse in and they see your mistakes too. And sometimes they can get frustrated, which only adds to the frustration that you're feeling because you're like, I didn't want to say it that way, or I didn't want to, yell at them or whatever the case may be. So, no, man, I just, lean on each other. None of us are perfect. It's a whole thing just trying to get these kids to the next step. So,
Love that so much. So much wisdom today. We thank you so much for your time. We hope you have a wonderful trip with your kids.
yes.
Is there a quick and easy way for people that listened and loved you and loved your energy to find you, to find your YouTube?
Sure. Dr. Zaid Fadul. That's my handle on YouTube. You guys are welcome to check it out. And if you ever want to be a patient, we have these family plans that are designed exactly for this.
Hello.
Uh, family planner, executive
Wow.
fitness.
Layla.
Bespoke Concierge MD.com. You're welcome to come check it out. And you get me and all the other providers as part of the practice. So thanks for letting her on. She
Cool.
loves
Oh,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to your road trip?
Yeah.
Okay,
Where we-
well, we're going to give your dad back so you could go, okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Enjoy
see
it.
you.
Have a great one.
Yeah,
Cheers.
have fun.